Evening. Welcome councillors, members of the public, officers and anyone watching, councillor or members of the public on YouTube, to this meeting of the Planning Committee. There are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening, so if the ring goes, we exit quietly and meet in the car park. Item 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence.
Thank you. We've had apologies from Councillor David Whitcroft and Councillors Liz Noble and Helen Whitcroft are either running a bit late or have given their apologies, depending on whether they make it or not.
Okay, thank you. Item 2, minutes for the previous meeting. We've all had a look at the minutes. Anybody have any comments? No? Okay to sign these? Thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of interest. Members are invited to declare any pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests in relation to any of the items we will be discussing this evening. I will ask the question before each item, just as a reminder. Councillor Kang, you have your hand up.
Yes, I've had communications with Brackendale Close Residents Association. Look on with an open mind.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Councillor Wheeler.
I think that probably applies to all of us on the basis that the Residents Association has, I believe, contacted all of us.
Contacting me? No? No? But, no? Okay, thank you very much. Item 4, application number 230074, 29, 30 and 30A Brackendale Close. We do have a public speaker for this item, Mr. Akhil Vyas. If you'd like to, there. Okay, well, he can sit there. The officers will give the presentation on the application, and then you'll have 4 minutes, okay? Right, ready?
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to 29, 30 and 38 Brackendale Close. Planning permission is sought for the demolition of the existing dwellings and outbuildings and erection of a 2-storey flat development with roof accommodation. This would provide 25 flats split into 2 one-bed and 23 two-bed flats with 25 car parking spaces, ancillary bin storage and cycle storage. 100% of the flats would be shared ownership, an intermediate form of affordable housing. The application site is located on the corner of Brackendale Close and Portsmouth Road, the A325. Brackendale Close is characterised by detached dwellings within larger plots providing a spacious feel to the close. To the north of the site is Brackendale Court with the Toby Carvery and the Travel Lodge. To the east of Portsmouth Road are the rear gardens of dwellings fronting onto Fairfield Road. I'll just take you through some photos of the site. So the photo on the left-hand side is a view looking down Brackendale Close. The photo in the middle is the houses opposite the application site. And this is a photo of Brackendale Court to the north of the application site on Portsmouth Road. This is a photo of the 2 dwellings on the application site at 29 and number 30. And this just gives you an impression of the street scene of Brackendale Close as existing, and also street scene of Portsmouth Road as existing. This is a proposed layout of the application site. To the southwest corner, you have the car parking. The application is a resubmission of a previously refused application, which is currently at appeal. It's been amended with the vehicle access now onto Portsmouth Road and a separate pedestrian access onto Brackendale Close. The bin and cycle storage would be located to the southwest corner here, and the refuse would be collected from Brackendale Close. The proposal would provide soft landscaping and communal amenity space around the edges, with each flat provided with its own private amenity space in the form of terraces at ground floor and balconies at first floor. This is just a comparison of the previously refused and the current application, with the previously refused application on the left-hand side. As you can see, there's been a change in the car parking layout, and there's been a small reduction in the projection to the northeast corner there. These are the proposed elevation. It's a two-storey flatted development with roof accommodation. This is the rear elevation facing towards number 28 Brackendale Close, and then the two side elevations of the proposal. And this is just a comparison of the previously refused application on the top and the proposal under consideration at the bottom. And again, a comparison of the rear elevation with the previously refused application at the top and the current application at the bottom there. And then a comparison of the the side elevations with the current proposal on the left-hand side and the previously refused proposal on the right-hand side. And then just walking through the floor plans, the flats have been stacked with like rooms above like, which will prevent any sort of noise transmission and any issues with amenity. The provision of affordable housing would be 100%, which is over the 40% required by policy CP5. Whilst the housing team has raised an objection due to the lack of other tenures, such as affordable rent, there is a need for shared ownership in this part of the borough, and the proposal is considered acceptable in this respect. And just running through the second floor plan and the roof plan. This is a street scene of Brackendale Close, just to illustrate the changes in land levels. The proposal has been reduced in terms of its footprint from the previously refused scheme, with the additional landscaping, a reduction in car parking and the number of flats. However, whilst the reductions have been made, the amendments are not considered to be sufficient, and the proposal is recommended for refusal on the basis of it being an overdevelopment of the site due to its height, width and density, which would result in a dominant addition within the street scene, as well as the dominance of the car parking provision at the frontage of the site, which is contrary to the guidance within the RDG. In addition to this, Surrey Wildlife Trust has raised an objection in terms of the archaeological appraisal being out of date. This forms the second reason for refusal. And then the third reason for refusal is the lack of a legal agreement to secure mitigation for the Thames Basin SPA in terms of sand and sand payment, as well as a legal agreement to secure the affordable housing provision. The application is therefore recommended for refusal.
Thank you very much. Members, we have a guest speaker, Mr. Vyas. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Good. You have 4 minutes. The time starts when you're ready, and someone will interrupt you with a minute to go.
No problem at all. Good evening, all. Thank you for allowing me to speak. So for a bit of context, I moved to the area 2 years ago when stamp duty freezes were a thing. I'm a first-time buyer with my wife. Born and bred in London, very congested London, I had. One of the main reasons for moving here was we were about to have our first child, so we wanted a family home, a garden, a driveway, access to parks, access to schools, access to pubs as well. That's never a bad thing. So Camberley was kind of why we chose, that was the reason why we chose Camberley. And we absolutely love it here. It's a great place. We've got a great house, very safe. And we want more and more people like us to sort of get the opportunity to do that. So I think, you've made the points about the kind of cases for, or the reasons for refusal. We've talked about the scale and character for the area, which was in both reports. I think you're spot on with the building. It's in the same place. It may be slightly smaller, footfront-wise, but it's taller. It knocks down trees. And it's quite intrusive of the neighbours as well. It just doesn't quite fit with the scale and with the character of Brackendale Close. And I've only been there 2 years, but it's somewhere where I believe it's great as it is, essentially. I think one of the main things is about the parking. So I think it has reduced from 30 flats to 25. But as you said, 23 of them are two-bedded, which means, you know, is there really going to be one car per flat? So 25 spots, it's not many. What if you have visitors round? What if you have guests round? What if you have a gathering? Where are those people meant to park? As you know, Portsmouth Road is a very busy road. There isn't any parking on there. So the natural place would be for Brackendale Close. And there's obviously a pedestrian path there. Brackendale Close obviously has houses, has people parking kind of, you know, in their own driveways and outside. So, you know, we strongly believe that if you're going to create flats or do a development, you have to give people places to park. And we're just not doing that with this. We're totally not against a development being built. I mean, as I said, I started this by telling you where I live. You know, Rayfields was developed in 2015, where four family houses went. And if I look at everyone living there, young families, children, you know, said gardens, driveways, can have people over, and it's just such a better way of life. So that's why we think the parking is a massive issue. If you're going to have a development, you need to make sure you have enough parking. Otherwise, it's just going to lead to trouble. And that's basically it. I mean, a lot of it sort of repeat what I said, and there we go. Maybe I'm going to be out of time if I did. So yeah, we totally back the refusals, but as I said, we're not against developments, but they just have to be the right sort of developments. And hopefully I'm an example of that. Me, my wife and my son are hopefully an example of that. And that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Members, does anyone have a question for the speaker of a planning nature? No? Thank you very much indeed. Members, we have a recommendation for refusal from the officers. Does anyone have any comments to make? No? I put it. I am gobsmacked. I suggest we vote then. Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, Chair, just a question for the officer. In the report, obviously one of your grounds for refusal, the main one really is about the size and the mass of the bulk of the design. In the urban design consultants report, they say that the design is appropriate, the material is appropriate and the size is appropriate. They criticise other parts of the application. Can you explain why there's a difference there?
The reason being, I think, obviously, the previous application was refused in terms of similar reasons. It's officer's opinion that they haven't actually gone to the extent to address those previous reasons for refusal. Whilst the urban designer has supported it, to some extent, design is slightly subjective, and the case officers and myself included, when we assessed this, considered it to be an overdevelopment for the reasons put forward in the report.
Thanks. So if we were to refuse it today, it's likely the applicant would come back with another slightly smaller version until we eventually do approve it. Is that right?
It's difficult to predict what the applicant would do. Obviously, developing a site would rely on the viability of the site itself, so whether or not the developer could make a profit. If it's such that, you know, they can't, they may well walk away, but it's not something I could give you a definite answer on one way or another. But if they could potentially reduce it in size and address that reason for refusal.
That's great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councillor Wheeler.
I will come in. I was going to keep quiet. I have made my views on this known in that I think it's quite a difficult one for us to defend and to refuse. We're very much in need of affordable housing. This is 100% affordable with shared ownership. It's in what would be deemed by county as a sustainable location, particularly given that there is a bus stop right outside. and we have, as an authority, viewed this against Brackendale Close as opposed to against Portsmouth Road. If you were to view this development against Portsmouth Road, there is a very large development to the right-hand side as you're looking at the property, which is not dissimilar to this one, although I have full and complete sympathy with the residents and for their resistance to this property and this development going ahead. I will note, my gut reaction is that on appeal we will lose this because they've reduced the size, they've met the parking requirements, the design guide that we're using, the design authority that we're using, are not objecting to it. The residential amenity space is in keeping with our guidelines. So it's a really tough one on this point. So I will just make those points for other members of the committee to be aware of.
Anybody else? Councillor Noble.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to apologise for being late, and I understand that I won't be able to vote in this. Wanted to confirm.
So I think Councillor Noble's just apologising, not commenting on the application. Anybody else want to say anything? No. We have an officer recommendation to refuse. Or do I have a proposer for that recommendation? Councillor Kang, a seconder. Councillor Skipper.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favour of the officer recommendation to refuse, please raise your hands.
That's Councillor Betton, Councillor Garrett, Councillor Glowett, Councillor Kang, Councillor Rowlands, Councillor Skipper, Councillor White and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Those against the officer recommendation?
Councillor O'Mahony, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Wheeler.
And any abstentions? No.
No.
Thank you. I guess that's refused. Okay. Item 5, application 230217, 5 Cedar Gardens, Chobham. Who's the...
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to 5 Cedar Gardens in Chobham. The host dwelling is a 2-storey detached dwelling with roof accommodation, and this application seeks the erection of a single-storey rear extension. The block plan shows the dwelling with the extension proposed. The photos here provide some context for the application site. Photo 1 shows the rear elevation of the application property. Photo 2 is taken from the application property looking towards number 4 Cedar Gardens to the west, and photo 3 shows the application property in relation to number 6 Cedar Gardens to the east. These photos, in photo 1 is taken from the garden of number 6 Cedar Gardens looking towards the application site, with photos 2 and 3 again being taken from the application site towards number 6. These are the existing floor plans for the property. These are the existing side elevations, and these are the existing front and rear elevations. These are the proposed floor plans showing the rear extension. It would measure 3.4 metres in depth, 4.8 metres in width, and 2.8 metres in height. These are the proposed side elevations, and again the proposed front and rear elevations. So as set out in the committee report, the application is acceptable in terms of its impact on character, residential amenity, trees and highways, and therefore is recommended for approval subject to conditions.
Thank you. Members, we have an officer recommendation. Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you. This application would normally be determined under delegated authority, but was called in by me at the request of Chobham Parish Council. This site has, for those of you who are not familiar with Chobham, it is an infill development off a sort of 1950s, 1960s a state road with very limited access. The original application was recommended for refusal by this council and was one on appeal when they went forward with it. There's a couple of questions that I have. The first one is that the tree officer makes the statement that there is no longer sufficient protection for the tree on this property in his report, and he refers us to TP01. So I wondered if the officer, please, could come back to me on what TP01 is, because all of my best Googling, all of the records that I have at home, do you know, I cannot find that particular clause within our planning policy. The other thing as well is if I could ask you, please, to bring up the view, one of the views with the properties side by side. Number 6, as we can see from the next one, sorry, or the previous one, whichever way you're going, the next one, you can see that number 6, Cedar Gardens, is set back quite considerably from the development site. So although for number 4, and I understand for number 6 as well, the 60-degree rule applies, there will still be an impact on that garden from that property, because that property is west-southwest of number 6 Cedar Gardens. And so therefore my feeling is that there will definitely be a light impact. And also just to make other members of the committee aware, I understand this property will no longer meet our minimum space standards as recommended in our design guide principles. And although I appreciate that that's not necessarily applicable to, although I have to confess I don't understand why not, I understand that it's not applicable to extensions. It is a design guide that we have as a council all signed up to and are all aware of, and we are reducing the amenity space for what is already a slightly enlarged property in an area which was slightly contentious to begin with, and that angle between the two properties, particularly in relation to number 6, does, in my opinion, form an unneighbourly relationship. But if you could come back to me, please, on TP01, and also you may wish to just clarify for other members the reduced amenity space. Thank you.
Yep, so there is a protected tree to the front of the property. It's protected, the tree preservation order is TPO 7/03. The arboriculture officer has no objection to the proposal, but notes that the supporting tree protection plan does not comply with the requirements of BS 5837 at this time, and he's recommended a pre-commencement condition for that tree protection plan to be updated so the tree is protected during the development. The agent has agreed that pre-commencement condition, so that would be imposed on any consent. So that's the tree. Does that answer the tree question?
Thank you. Yes, it does answer the tree question. I did look through, where is that specified? Sorry, in the fact that they must adhere to it. If it's not actually specified in our documentation, if we could please have that as a condition of approval, if this committee is minded to approve. And if I've missed it, I apologise.
Condition 4 on the list, yeah.
Thank you.
And then, sorry, was the question about the impact on number 6?
So it's the impact on number 6,
Yeah.
and also the fact that the amenity space that is remaining is below our minimum standards that we recommend in our design guide principles.
Yeah, so number 6 is to the east of the application property, and the extension itself would only stand 1 metre taller than the existing 1.8 metre high fence. So it's considered this arrangement would not be overbearing or result in overshadowing to a degree that would warrant refusal, and it doesn't breach the 60-degree rule in relation to the nearest habitable window as well. And then in relation to the amenity space, the residential design guide is split into a number of sections. Amenity standards are set out in section 8, which deals with development of new dwellings. The guidance on extensions is set out in section 10, and that section, which specifically relates to householder extensions, makes no reference to the amenity space standards.
I just would like a supplementary question on that, because I think we need to be quite clear for future applications. We have a design guide which gives a minimum space standard, and essentially if I was a developer, I would come in to meet that design guide. I would then apply for an extension, which, from what we're saying in this application, would mean that the minimum design guide essentially is almost a redundant design principle the minute the property is built. So I just think we just maybe need to consider that a little bit, and maybe that's something we need to bring up under the local plan. But
I think, sorry, Councillor Wheeler, I think you also have to note that this development was built in 2004 or was approved in 2004. And at that time, there would have been very different standards in place. It's then unreasonable to apply current standards, i.e. the current residential design guide was introduced in 2017, and that specifically talks about new development. So it's unreasonable to then apply those standards to a pre-existing development. All you can really do is assess the impact as is at the moment on the ground and whether or not that proposal would have a significant impact. The officer's already referred to section 10 of the residential design guide, which is a section which specifically deals with residential extensions, and under that section it does comply. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? Make a point, comment? No? Okay, we have an officer recommendation for approval, subject to the tree. All those in favour? We have a proposer. Councillor Wilson, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Kang. All those in favour?
Okay, so that's Councillor Betton, Councillor Glowett, Councillor Kang, Councillor Noble, Councillor Mahoney, Councillor Rowland, Councillor Skipper, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Wilson.
Those against?
Councillor Garrett, Councillor Wheeler, Councillor White.
And any abstentions? No. Thank you very much.
So that's carried.
That concludes the business of the meeting. Thank you very much for coming, and I wish you a very pleasant rest of the evening. Good night.